Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we're going to get into the mind of Bob Camblin.
Oh, yeah,
You know, his work, I'm sure.
absolutely.
And we're going to kind of go beyond the surface today.
Yeah.
We've got some really cool stuff to work with. We've got some of his personal writings. We've
Awesome.
got a video exploring his figure four trap,
Hmm.
which is fascinating, and even a book review that adds another layer to it all.
Oh, wow.
So it's really going to be like piecing together a puzzle of paradoxes today.
Yeah. One of the things that I always found so intriguing about Camplin is embracing of contradictions.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his work and he delves into science and magic, almost like he's trying to find some hidden bridge between them.
That's right. And it makes you think, how can someone who's fascinated by the extraordinary also champion this perfectly average
Yeah.
view of the universe?
Yeah, and I think that's really where his genius lies. It's not about settling for mediocrity, but it's about finding that balanced perspective, that kind of smear between the whiteness and the blackness, as he calls it.
You know, it suggests that the truth often lies somewhere in those nuances, in that space
Yeah.
between the extremes.
Yeah, and that search for balance seems to extend to his views on art, too.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, for Camlin, it's not just about aesthetics, it's about survival.
Exactly. He uses this phrase, ecology of art, which really struck me. He sees art as this, like, essential element of life itself, not just like some decorative element.
Uh-huh.
It's about finding meaning and purpose in a world that can feel very chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like art is as vital as the air we breathe,
Yeah,
the food we eat.
right.
But how does this tie into his emphasis on stillness, particularly with this figure four trap?
Well, the trap, as it's described in this video, it's all about stillness.
Yeah.
It's a structure that doesn't move, doesn't chase after anything. It just simply is.
Mm.
And this really resonates with a lot of Camblin's own philosophy.
Mhm.
He talks about bending, not bowing,
Right.
suggesting this quiet strength and resisting this constant urge to react or chase after things,
So it's not about being passive. No, not at all.
but about choosing when and how to act,
Exactly.
finding that inner stillness that allows you to see things more clearly.
Precisely. And he even goes on to connect this stillness to like a heightened sense of awareness.
Okay.
He refers to the sixth sense as being without a doubt. So it's about finding that unwavering certainty within ourselves, even amidst all the chaos.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about his whole view of art as survival.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's in that stillness, in that space of non-action, that we really connect with our deepest selves and we find the strength to navigate all the challenges.
I think you're really onto something there. And it's interesting how this concept of stillness also relates to his fascination with illusion and misdirection.
Right.
The book review mentions these tricks of illusion that he uses in his art and links them to his interest in magic.
It's not deception for deception's sake, though, right?
No, not at all.
He draws a line between using illusion to manipulate versus using it as a tool for deeper understanding.
Absolutely. He talks about magic for power being negative and magic for seeing being positive. So it's like he's saying that illusion can be this powerful tool for revealing truth,
Right.
for challenging our perceptions and assumptions.
He even has that great quote, fool the eye, fool the mind.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if he's encouraging us to question everything we see and believe, look
Yeah.
beyond the surface and find those hidden layers of meaning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's Camlin.
That's Camlin.
Yeah, it's like he's using those tricks to like help us see the world and ourselves more clearly.
Yeah.
And that ties in really beautifully with his whole search for meaning.
Right.
Particularly, his concept of evolution.
Well, he sees evolution not just in like a biological sense, but almost as a broader principle of growth and change, right?
Exactly. And he draws this really interesting contrast between revolution and evolution,
Okay.
suggesting that revolutions often lead to misunderstandings, while evolution is about true understanding.
I wonder if he's saying revolutions are more abrupt and chaotic
Yeah.
and lead to resistance, while evolution is more of a gradual process.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting take. And, it makes me wonder if this ties back to his emphasis on stillness.
Right.
Maybe he's saying that true evolution requires moments of action and moments of quiet reflection.
Yeah.
Like it's in that stillness that we really integrate new knowledge and allow for that genuine growth.
That's fascinating. And this whole idea of evolution also seems to connect to his thoughts on the balance between individual and collective minds.
Absolutely.
He suggests that understanding might start individually and then maybe later collectively.
It's almost like he's envisioning this ripple effect,
Yeah.
where individual growth can then inspire and influence those around us,
Right.
eventually leading to this kind of collective shift in consciousness.
Which is a really optimistic way of looking at things,
It is.
especially considering his concerns about the state of the world.
Absolutely. And it speaks to his belief in the power of personal transformation, you know? Yeah.
It's not about waiting for others to change or for the world to magically become a better place,
Right.
but starting with ourselves, with our own evolution.
Speaking of evolution,
Yeah.
there's that intriguing line, time travel at the speed of enlightenment.
Oh, yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it speaks to his view of time as something more fluid than our usual linear perception.
Okay.
Maybe he's suggesting that true enlightenment allows us to move beyond the limitations of past, present, future,
Right.
and see them as interconnected.
All existing simultaneously. So it's not about literally traveling through time,
Right.
but expanding our awareness to see
Yes.
that bigger picture.
The interconnectedness of everything. And, this idea of seeing the bigger picture also seems to be central to his artistic process as well.
Okay.
He talks about stepping off the train of thought to really find that true creative power.
Right. To laugh, the true laugh.
Exactly. It's like we can get so caught up in our own linear thinking.
Yeah. Our preconceived notions.
Right.
That we completely miss the magic and the spontaneity of the creative process.
He's encouraging us to let go of those rigid thought patterns and just allow for those intuitive leaps.
Embrace the unknown.
Yeah. And he also emphasizes this nonverbal aspect of creativity, the importance of feeling and intuition.
Absolutely.
He even compares the artist to a Zen monk.
Yeah.
When he says, when Zen monks say that we are always the Buddha, but we keep forgetting it most of the time.
Yeah.
I knew that, but now I know it.
It's about accessing that state of pure awareness.
Right.
Of being fully present in the moment without the interference of all those thoughts and judgments.
It's a sense of knowing.
Yes.
That goes beyond the intellect.
Something that can't be explained or taught, only experienced.
And it reminds me of his distinction between believing and knowing.
Oh, yeah.
He says, most people practice a belief or a religion. They were raised in mystics, know something else. They remain connected to a faith or abandon it, but they have been somewhere, and logic won't make the trip.
It highlights that sometimes the most profound truths are felt, not thought.
Yeah.
It's about going beyond that intellectual understanding and having a direct experience.
Right.
A visceral knowing that transcends logic and explanation.
And maybe that's why he seems to be critical of art criticism and the over-intellectualization of art. He's got that line about a critic as a legless man who teaches running.
Oh, yeah.
Implying that those who analyze and dissect art from a purely intellectual standpoint might be missing the point entirely.
Yeah, it's like you can't truly understand a piece of art by just reading about it or taking it apart intellectually.
Yeah.
You have to experience it, feel it, let it move you on a deeper level.
He seems to be advocating for a more intuitive and experiential approach to art.
Absolutely.
For both the creator and the viewer.
For everyone.
Which makes me think about his emphasis on humor.
Oh, yeah.
When understood, all truth is funny.
There's definitely this playful energy to his work.
Yeah.
Even when he's dealing with these really complex concepts.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
About finding the humor in all of our human struggles and contradictions.
It's that cosmic perspective.
Yeah.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Recognizing the absurdity.
Yeah, and realizing that even in the midst of all the chaos, there's a kind of humor to it all.
Right.
And maybe embracing that humor is what allows us to keep going.
To keep creating.
To keep searching.
To keep searching for that meaning.
And this playful energy is definitely reflected in his artistic approach.
No, absolutely.
He talks about action experiment drawings for discoveries on paper, slow analytic drawings for discoveries in the world, and conceptual drawings for discoveries in the mind.
Yeah, it sounds like he's using drawing as a tool for exploration, a way of tapping into different modes of thinking.
Yeah, and uncovering those hidden connections.
Yeah, those unexpected insights.
And it's interesting how he also mentions haiku.
Right.
Highlighting the simplicity and directness of that form.
It's about capturing the essence of a moment.
Yeah, a feeling or an idea.
Yeah. Without all the unnecessary embellishment.
And this minimalist aesthetic extends to his views on teaching as well.
Oh, yeah.
He mentions this progression of assuming, then capitulating, and finally teaching.
Maybe it suggests a process of letting go of preconceived notions.
Right.
And allowing for a more organic and intuitive approach to learning.
It's recognizing that true learning is a collaborative process, a
Yes.
dialogue between teacher and student.
Not just a one-way transmission of knowledge.
Right. It's about creating a space for exploration and discovery for both the teacher and the student,
Absolutely.
which makes me think about his description of his ego, gracefully as a goldfish's shit, folded under the waving tail.
Oh, man. So
That's
Camblin,
Camblin.
that ability to just poke fun at himself.
Right.
To find humor even in something as potentially weighty as the ego.
And I think that's what makes his work so relatable and engaging.
Mhm.
He's not afraid to be vulnerable.
To show his flaws.
Yeah, to acknowledge that he's still figuring things out.
And it's that humility, that willingness to let go of the need to be right or perfect
Yeah.
that makes his work so refreshing and inspiring.
Yeah, it makes you realize that sometimes true wisdom comes from a place of not knowing.
Yeah.
Of being open to new possibilities.
Absolutely.
And this seems to connect with his thoughts on the impermanence of things.
Yeah.
He talks about this phoenix trapped in a salty shell, unable to burn itself to a new life.
Right.
It's such a powerful image.
It really is. It speaks to that tension between, our yearning for permanence and then the inevitable reality of change and decay.
Right.
And yet Camblin finds beauty in that fleeting, in those salty wings, a residue for those left behind to ponder and fret about at the end.
It's like he's saying that even in death, even in those remnants of what once was, there's still a story to be told, a legacy to be honored.
Yeah.
And this brings to mind his concept of the hologram, this idea that we're all fragments of a larger whole.
Right.
What do you think he's getting at with that metaphor?
Well, he describes humans as holograms, suggesting that the more we connect, the clearer the picture becomes. It's such a beautiful way of expressing interconnectedness, reminding us that we're all part of something much greater than ourselves.
It's like each individual is a piece of this giant puzzle.
Yeah.
And through our interactions and relationships, we start to create the complete image.
Right.
And this ties into his idea of real time, this sense that we're approaching an edge and awaiting the inevitable necessity. What do you make of that?
It's like he's sensing the shift in consciousness, this
Yeah.
convergence of individual and collective awareness.
Right.
He seems to be suggesting that we're moving toward a new understanding of time and our place within it.
And he even touches on solipsism,
Right.
the idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist.
Yeah.
But he doesn't just dismiss it outright.
No.
He suggests that solipsists aren't crazy, they just misunderstand.
That's a really intriguing perspective. It's
Yeah.
like he's acknowledging the validity of that experience.
Right, that feeling of isolation
Yeah.
and separation.
Yeah, but he's offering a different way of interpreting it.
Yeah, instead of being trapped in our own minds.
Right.
He's encouraging us to reach out, to connect,
Yeah.
to recognize that shared humanity that binds us all.
Absolutely.
And that collaborative spirit is really evident in his views on art, too.
Oh, for sure.
When he talks about participatory art,
Yeah.
it suggests a shift away from that traditional model of the solitary artist creating for a passive audience.
He's challenging that whole notion of the artist as the lone genius isolated in their studio.
Right.
He sees art as this shared experience, this
Yeah.
conversation between creator and viewer.
And he even critiques the limitations of language,
Oh, yeah.
suggesting that our syntax inhibits concepts that are not logical and linear.
Right.
It's like he's pushing the boundaries of language,
Absolutely.
using art to express those ideas that words can't quite capture.
It's fascinating.
Which brings us back to his ecology of art.
Yeah.
The role of artists in a world that often prioritizes practicality and efficiency over creativity and self-expression.
He describes artists as fighting for existence in a world gone very wrong.
It's a powerful statement about the importance of art, even if its impact isn't always immediately apparent or easily quantifiable.
Right.
He's saying that artists are essential
Essential.
to our collective well-being,
Yes.
even if their contributions aren't always understood or appreciated.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, how can artists navigate a world that often seems hostile to their very existence?
Well, he acknowledges that challenge,
He does.
particularly in our current disposable art culture.
Right, where most aesthetics now are based on shock and recognition, not contemplation.
Yeah, he wrestles with that tension
Yeah.
between creating something truly unique and intimate
Hmm.
and also navigating the demands of the art market.
He wonders what compromise one can make at this time.
It's a question so many artists grapple with.
Yeah.
Finding that balance between staying true to their vision
Right.
And also finding ways to connect with an audience.
Yeah, an audience that's constantly bombarded with new images and ideas.
He talks about that standard sign against the sunset,
Hmm.
suggesting that true meaning and communication in art can be so elusive.
Yeah, and he even acknowledges that a seemingly shallow work might resonate deeply with someone 100 years from now.
Right.
It's humbling.
Yeah, to realize the limits of our own understanding
Right.
and the unpredictable nature of how art is received and interpreted over time.
Absolutely.
And it makes me think of his point about how knowledge doesn't necessarily lead to education,
Yeah.
and the feeling cannot be transferred except by experience.
He's emphasizing that true understanding comes from direct experience,
Right.
not just from accumulating information.
We can't just tell someone how to feel or what to experience.
Exactly. They have to discover it for themselves.
It's like true learning is an active process.
Yes.
An engagement with the world that goes beyond passive consumption.
Absolutely.
And this applies to art as well.
For sure.
He suggests that an artist's intention doesn't always translate directly to the viewer's experience.
Right. The meaning of a work can kind of evolve over time,
Yeah.
depending on the context and the individual perspectives.
Which brings us to his concept of the mystic switch.
Oh, yes.
That moment of insight or revelation that can't be explained by logic alone.
He describes it as the rising hackle or the visceral knot,
Right.
something that's felt deeply in the body, not just thought in the mind.
He's emphasizing the importance of intuition and feeling
Yes.
in the creative process.
Urging us to learn to fail, learn to relax, learn to feel, learn how to really think.
It's about embracing that uncertainty.
That not knowing
Yeah.
and allowing for those unexpected breakthroughs.
And it's about shifting our perception from looking to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
He says, one must learn not to look but to see. One must try to fail in order to succeed. Success will be another failure.
It's quite the paradox.
It really is.
But it suggests that true success lies in that process of exploration and experimentation.
Yeah, not in reaching some fixed destination.
It's about being open to new possibilities.
Right, to unexpected twists and turns along the way.
And he challenges us to embrace failure
Yeah.
as a necessary part of growth and learning.
He even says process and awareness of it
Mm-hmm.
cannot be failure.
He's encouraging us to step outside our comfort zones,
Take risks.
to experiment.
To not be afraid to make mistakes.
It's in those moments of so-called failure that we often discover something new and unexpected.
And he connects this back to Zen philosophy.
Yes.
Reminding us that we are always the Buddha, but we keep forgetting it most of the time.
Right. It's about recognizing our inherent potential.
Yeah, our innate wisdom.
Trusting that inner compass even when we feel lost or uncertain.
He's encouraging us to let go of self-doubt
Yeah.
and embrace our own capacity for creativity and understanding.
Absolutely.
And he constantly emphasizes the interconnectedness of everything,
Yes.
reminding us that everyone is a mirror and that is magic.
It's about seeing ourselves reflected in others.
Yeah, recognizing that sense of shared humanity that binds us all.
And he finds magic in those everyday moments,
Right.
those seemingly insignificant details that we often overlook.
He talks about the jump the fish makes into the water,
Yeah.
this simple act that reveals a profound truth about instinct and intuition.
It's a reminder to pay attention to those subtle cues,
Yeah.
those fleeting moments of beauty and wonder that surround us.
If we only take the time to notice.
And he brings it all back to art,
He does.
saying some seeing is magic, some seeing is intellectual, intellectual seeing may lead to art, magic seeing leads to understanding, and also to art.
It's advocating for that balance between the intellectual and the intuitive,
Yeah.
the analytical and the experiential.
Right, recognizing that both are essential to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
He suggests that art arising from magic seeing is somehow more connected to the endless part of life,
Mm.
while art from intellectual seeing is tied to culture
It's as though he's suggesting that art can transcend cultural boundaries.
Yeah.
and tap into something universal and timeless.
And he emphasizes playfulness and humor,
Oh,
reminding us to fool the eye, through the mind. It's
Oh.
about not taking ourselves too seriously.
allowing for those moments of lightness and joy.
Yeah, even when we're exploring complex and challenging themes.
And he acknowledges that cyclical nature of creativity, the ebb and flow of inspiration and doubt.
He describes it as a frosted window.
Yeah, where those images appear and disappear.
It's so poetic.
It is, and he's urging us to embrace that impermanence,
Yeah.
to trust the process.
It's about letting go of the need for control, allowing for those moments of serendipity and surprise to guide us.
And he also highlights the importance of stillness,
Oh, absolutely.
describing it as a form of resistance
Right.
in a world that constantly demands movement and action.
Yeah, he talks about how the path of least resistance being complex for humans,
Right.
suggesting that true strength often lies in our ability to pause, to observe, and to choose our actions wisely.
That beautiful image of the hawk,
Oh, yeah.
flying in great circles, lazy eights of thermal updrafts.
Illustrating this concept perfectly.
Finding that effortless grace, the sense of
Yeah.
balance and harmony.
And he also touches on the tension between futility and provocation in art,
Right.
suggesting that true freedom comes from letting go of those external pressures and expectations.
And then there's the Italian dolce far niente.
Ah, yes. Carefree idleness.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most profound insights come when we step away from the striving
Yeah.
and allow ourselves to just be
In
present.
the moment.
Yeah, and he concludes with his beautiful reflection
Yeah.
on the cyclical nature of the universe,
Yeah.
the constant interplay of chaos and order.
Beginning and ending.
He describes it as a cycle, a
Oh.
beginning and ending, the next step and the next, an action required, a link to the past, a thread of the future.
It's a beautiful way to encapsulate his whole philosophy, the
Yeah.
sense of interconnectedness.
Right, and this ongoing dance between these opposing forces.
And he leaves us with that final image,
One point of return.
suggesting that even in the midst of all this change and uncertainty,
Yeah.
there's this sense of continuity, a thread that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
So after this deep dive, what stands out to you about Bob Camblin?
Well, his work really reminds us that, true understanding isn't always about finding those definitive answers.
Right.
Sometimes it's about embracing the paradoxes, the illusions, and that stillness.
That allows us to see the world and ourselves in a new light.